and get my slides going. Great. Thank you so much for coming out early in the morning. I know the party last night was intense. We all had a lot to drink. We all had a lot to eat. I thought the band was great. Did you enjoy the band? It was really good. I really loved it. And I always wondered, how would it be to be in France and be listening to Lady Marmalade with that lyric? So now we know. So I actually have it on tape, so that's great. So I'm here to talk about the Beatles. I wore my grooviest dress for you all today, so it's not so comfortable, and I can't really raise my arms, so here we are. So now we know what it was like in the 60s. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about the Beatles, a little bit about machine learning, a lot about mobile applications, and how to build them with the most fun application that I could create for you today. So I actually created this app special for DevFest Nantes because they said they wanted rock. Well, actually, they said, we want the rock. And I said, you mean the wrestler? Like, no, they wanted rock. So, okay, so I gave them the Beatles, so because, you know, that's what I grew up with, actually. So this is, I hope you'll enjoy this magical mystery tour with me. I'm a cloud developer advocate lead at Microsoft. I manage the regional team for the Americas, so we are the ART, the Americas regional team. I manage Canada, US, and Latin America at Microsoft in the regional group. I'm also a Google developer expert for web, which goes to show that at Microsoft we also love our Apple things and we love our Google things. So it's a big mishmash, but it's a lot of fun. I'm also the founder and CEO of Vue Vixens, and I just wanted to show you our website. If you are interested, you can come take a look at vuevixens.org. So Vue Vixens is an initiative to help bring gender diversity into the Vue.js community. I'm kind of deeply entrenched in the Vue.js community. How many Vue leavers out there? Vue people? A couple Vue people? That's awesome. So if you're interested in taking a look at our initiative, you can visit us at vuevixens.org, or you can come and follow us on Twitter at vuevixens. And I'm also Jen Looper on Twitter. So you ready? You ready to go? All right, let's do this. Here we are. Okay, so in my career, I've been more and more looking backwards, even as we stay on the cutting edge of technology. So it's kind of an interesting place to be. I really enjoy making mobile apps, and mobile apps are a really super place to be experimenting because they're sort of like software snacks. And you can kind of, make something really intensely immersive on a small device on your mobile phone. It's a really fun place to be. I've been doing it for a long time, ever since I got my little iPhone 4, which is about this big, like a candy bar. But what I'd like to do is to take you back to the 60s, even before I was born, which was like 100 years ago. So take you back to the 60s and think about how we can, take a look at old things and make them new with new technologies. These are some examples of mobile apps that are kind of a little bit popular now. The first one is made by my colleague at Microsoft. It allows you to learn Morse code on your mobile device by tapping, and you can learn, the different ways of communicating in Morse code. Huji allows you to take these sort of Polaroid-y pictures with a lot of lens flare. There's also, I don't know if you knew that Tom Hanks is huge into typewriters, vintage typewriters. So he created the Hanks writer, or he had people work with him to create the Hanks writer, which allows you to have a machine clicky typing experience on your mobile device. It's really cool. You should download the Hanks writer. It's really fun if you like typewriters. So those are how we can pay tribute to old types of technologies, old machines. Well, how can we pay tribute to vintage bands, to really innovative bands that were on the bleeding edge, but back in their day? Well, of course, there are tribute bands. The Rumors is it's not Pink Floyd, it's a Fleetwood Mac band, tribute band. There's also my personal favorite, Led Zeppelin. They actually toured near me, and actually Led Zeppelin went to some of their concerts and said they were really, really good. So Led Zeppelin is a girl band that does all Led Zeppelin songs. Lots of great tribute bands. There are also tribute festivals. This one in Wisconsin has, I don't know how many hundreds of tribute bands. You can go and listen to your favorite music from way back in the day. This is a very common thing. Apparently, there are thousands of Beatles tribute bands. They all seem to have about the same look, you know, that 1964-65 look with the suits and the hair and the left-hand guitars. There's Abbey Road, there's all sorts of different bands. I didn't know there were this many, but researching for this talk, I learned a lot. It's very interesting. The Fab Four forever, very nice. But getting away from this concept of tribute bands, let's imagine a more immersive experience. You know, how can we really, you know, build some software, build something interesting technologically that will allow us to really experience these antique and vintage bands in a really cool and new way? So what I decided to do is to create for you Twist and Shout, the ultimate tribute app to the ultimate band. Okay, so you're ready to come on this magical mystery tour with me, and we will take a look at how to build the ultimate tribute app for the Beatles. So what I wanted to do is just give you an idea of how incredibly innovative the Beatles were back in the day. They had a long discography that's pretty complicated because they had a lot of releases in different countries. Some were singles, some were LPs. LPs weren't so popular in the US, so they tended to release things more in singles. And you know, they started with this kind of very poppy music, and they were actually touring with Roy Orbison, and you can totally tell. It's very interesting. So Please Please Me sounds a lot like Roy Orbison in '63, and then they had this very intense creative spree from '63 to about '66, and I think they burnt out on touring basically. So they started getting more and more innovative by staying in the studio and doing really great albums such as Rubber Soul and Revolver in '65, '66, and really changing their look and their whole sound in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and then getting more and more into the kind of beatnik and LSD-driven culture. I grew up personally with the White Album, The Beatles, from 1968, because I was born in 1970, so this is my soundtrack when I was growing up. What a great album. But just to give you a little background, in case you weren't familiar, so the Beatles were an English rock band formed in Liverpool in 1960, with a lineup comprising John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They are regarded as the most influential band of all time. I think we all know this. And I'm just wondering how many Beatles fans there are here? Quite a few. That's really cool. It's kind of making a comeback. I'm seeing more and more ads in the US using old Beatles songs, so it's kind of neat. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna go ahead and use new tech to appreciate old music. And the app that I created for you today has 4 parts. It has a daily lyric. You can recreate a famous song with a soundboard, build an album cover, and create new lyrics. So that's where the machine learning piece comes into this at the last one. So we're going to go ahead and build this mobile app, and then we're going to go ahead and I'll talk a little bit more about machine learning at the end of the talk when we are starting to get more creative with the lyrics as we go. So what I usually do before starting on this kind of project is try to kind of immerse myself in the content itself. So I did an app similar to this for Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is a poet from the US who was active in 1840, 50, 60. And she has a huge amount of poetry and works, so it's really cool to take all these poems, or kind of a corpus of written material, and do some kind of text mining on it, and see, what you can discern from the actual words that these people are writing. So that's what I did with the Beatles. So the Beatles have 213 songs which are considered the canon. They recorded maybe 700 or so, but a lot of those were cover songs. So what you can do is, it's actually, unfortunately, there wasn't an API that I could find that would allow me to download the actual lyrics of these 213 songs. That's too bad. So what I had to do is kind of patrol the internet and look around at these junky fan sites. So this one is BeatlesNumber9.com. It's really ugly, but it has all 213 songs kind of just dumped into like a homepage. So you can go ahead and scrape all of this and start using these texts to try to get an idea of what these songs are all about. Some people have said, the Beatles, they're like the Picasso of the 60s. They were so innovative, and their words really are very deep meaning. Well, I wanted to just make sure that what I had heard about the lyrics was true. I had my doubts because, Some of the lyrics are pretty fluffy. So what I did is I took all of these lyrics, I put them into a text file, and I opened up an Azure notebook. So I'm at Microsoft, so I like using Azure notebooks to text mine. So Azure Notebooks are allowing you to take up Python and run it in a kernel in the cloud. So it's a really cool way to take a look at a bunch of text. You can clean it for what we call stop words. Stop words are really common words like a, and, the, but, if. Get rid of the stop words, and then go ahead and see what, for example, in this notebook, I'm asking what is the most common word used by this corpus of written material. So, what's the most common word used by the Beatles? Guess. You got it. Love, love, love. Here it is. So this is really interesting. If you do the same exercise to Emily Dickinson's poetry, it's a much flatter curve because her vocabulary is so much richer. She has just a lot of different words that she's using all the time. She's a very introspective writer. Her most common word was... oh dear, I can't remember exactly what it was. We'll have to open up the Azure Notebook, and I think it's nature, but it's not death. So everyone thinks that Emily Dickinson is very dark, but it's not death. That's actually kind of in the middle. She talks about life more than she talks about death. So this kind of text mining allows you to kind of challenge your assumptions of what these people are talking about. So the Beatles had this kind of very, the top 4 words are very clear here. It's love, no, I'm, don't. So I think this is very telling. These are very, very simple words. This is a very simple vocabulary, Oh, want, got, girl, see, baby, I'll say, like, get, time, well, you're back. It's just very, very simple. So that kind of blows up the idea that they're, truly innovating in terms of lyrics. So great. But at least we have a little point here that we can say, okay, if the most commonly used word is love, 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 then let's go ahead and create an experience within an app that kind of expresses our love for this band. So we can show our love for this group in this app. Okay, time to build. Now that we've done our homework, we can go ahead and build. So what I usually do in this kind of app is I start off easy. Again, this is their very first album. The songs are pretty easy, actually. And Love Me Do is the first one. So. But before you get started, you have to make a decision, right? You have to find some kind of tech stack that you like to use to make a mobile app. Of course, you can build natively. You can use Swift or Objective-C on your iPhone, and then you would redo it with Java for your Android device. Personally, I like to, since I'm a web developer by training, I like to use my knowledge of web technology to build for mobile. So I use a tech stack that uses NativeScript. So it's JavaScript for native development. It was developed by my former company, but it's actually a community project built by a college student. It's a port for NativeScript for Vue. NativeScriptVue.org is something you might want to take a look at. So use NativeScript. You'll just be writing JavaScript. Use NativeScript Vue. You'll be using Vue.js for us Vue developers. We end up, writing something that's very similar to writing for the web, but you're using Vue.js. And this is the logo, NativeScript Vue, that we developed. So it's all open source, it's free to try, it works really well, and it produces a cross-platform native mobile app, similar to what you would be doing with React Native, except you're using Vue.js. So that's a big plus for me. I don't have to write the thing twice, I can just go ahead and write once and run everywhere, which is kind of the dream, right? So to use NativeScript, you're going to be using the CLI, right, the command line interface. So I have a little movie of how this works. You have NativeScript CLI installed. You also need Xcode, and you need, if you're going to be developing for Android, you need Android Studio. Those will get all of your paths arranged, and you have to get your emulators ready to roll. But open up the NativeScript CLI and just do TNS. So TNS is Telerik Native Script. TNS create, and then the name of your app. So TNS create twist and shout. Let's create a NativeScript app, and then it starts installing a whole bunch of NPM modules, of course. After you tell it what kind of app you want a Vue.js app, and you're just creating a blank app. So it goes ahead and does a node install, and tests the binary, and then your project is successfully created. So that's a big win. At the end of the process, You can type TNS preview, and it'll give you a QR code. And you can run this right on your device as long as you have a little shell app, a little playground app installed. So you can just run this right on device, and it'll start hot module replacement immediately. So it's a nice, smooth developer experience. Again, all free and open source, and you can give it a try. It's really fun. So here is what is scaffolded for you out of the box using NativeScript Vue. So you have your package JSON file with all your dependencies, and then I always open up app.js. You can take a look at how the template is created, and then a frame is created, and then your home screen is injected into that frame. So everything is ready for you. They usually install Sass. I'm not a huge proponent of Sass for mobile, so I usually get rid of all of it and have a very simple styling. But that's just personal preference. You have Sass available for you if you want to use it, so that's really fun. Okay, so as you can see, you have a basic Vue app scaffolded here. You have components. So NativeScript Vue supports single file components like home. So that is your SFC that's being brought in. And once you fire up your emulators, here's what you have. So you have this running in Android and this running in iOS. Obviously, it's not terribly exciting looking. It's not great looking yet, but we'll fix that. Okay. So at this point, what I usually do is I start creating 4 tabs. You can use NativeScript modules to create these kind of layouts. You'll notice that there's a grid layout, there's a stack layout. Grid allows you to have some nice layout flexibility. Stack layout is just one on top of the other of your images and your labels. You could also, if you really wanted to, you could use the tab navigator module. Personally, I hate the way native tabs look. I really want to style them more, so I usually kind of DIY. I create my own tabs. The problem with tabs is that natively on Android, they're at the top. Natively on iOS, they're at the bottom, so it always drives me crazy. So I just get rid of all the tabs, and I make my own. So here, I have a grid layout that's building up these tabs, and it's going to be injecting the various single file components as I create them, as I click buttons. So it's kind of lazy loading. It just it loads as you click. Once it's loaded, it's there available for you. So it's a nice, smooth, fast experience. OK, so create 4 tabs and 4 pages. And then I need to take the text mining exercise that I did prior. So I scraped all of that data from that website. I put it in a JSON file. So each line is one element in the JSON file. The way the data came down to me is it's 1 line per lyric and then an asterisk showing the end of the song. So I have to do some complicated parsing of the JSON to get the songs to be delineated, because what I'm doing is I'm building a song of the day screen, right? So just 1 song will be shown on the home screen per day. So this is not that beautiful, but I'm just going to show the first 6 lines in JSON of my song. And this is the secret sauce I always love to show, because I'm not a great designer. I'm a developer. My CSS skills are not that fabulous, but you can go really far with just a linear gradient in the background, a nice font. I use Dosis Regular and Yellow Submarine font, and nice background color, and border radius. I swear you can get like 75% of your styling is basically this. So this is my secret sauce of how to style a mobile app really nicely. So a big proponent of background gradients and nice border radius. Oh, it's demo time. Cool. OK. So here we are. This is my iPhone. I'm just going to project it up here. You can see. Let's open it up. OK, twist and shout. You ready? Here's a splash. Lyric of the day. This is the Old Brown Shoes song, I think. Anyway, so it's very, very simple. So we just have the lyric of the day coming out of that JSON file. It just grabs a random song and displays it. Very, very simple. OK? So that's where we're going to start. We're not going to finish there, though. It's going to be more interesting. All right. Easy peasy. Yay. OK. Now we need to get a little bit more immersive in this experience. What's a music app without music, right? We have to have some way to bring in music, a musical experience, into this band tribute app. So how are we going to do that? Well, my friend said, oh, you should create a soundboard. What's a soundboard? You could have a whole bunch of like the 213 songs and you could just play them. Personally, that's an awful lot to expect in a mobile app. I think you should leave that to Spotify. And also you're gonna run into copyright issues. So this is actually the elephant in the room of copyright. You noticed I haven't released this app, so we can talk about that later. But anyway, what I decided to do is to create Sgt. Pepper's soundboard, okay? And I was inspired by this weird album Revolver, which is kind of midway in the canon of the Beatles albums. It's from 1966, and it was completely revolutionary and very experimental. This is a studio album where they're really dropping a lot of LSD, and a lot of drugs going on here. But it did create some really innovative music. So that album was an album of firsts. It was George's first foray into Indian music with the sitar. Lots of drug references, lots of psychedelic pop. First use of tape loops, the very first use of tape loops and drum loops. First experiments playing clips backwards and then forwards. So, Revolver refers to the record and also the way they were recording. And it's considered the first kind of ultimate modern pop album. And there's a song on this album called Tomorrow Never Knows, which is a Ringo malapropism, as John explains. And it's a complete experiment in different kinds of looping and sounds and drum loops. And it's a really, really interesting song. And it's been said that you could never recreate this song. Challenge accepted, right? Let's try to use Sgt. Pepper's soundboard to recreate this song. What I wanted to do before is to give you a little more background on this. And I think the best way to do that is to let the guys speak for themselves.
And it was on Revolver that, of course, we have the track Tomorrow Never Knows, which was a great innovation.
That's me in my Tibetan Book of the Dead period. And the expression Tomorrow Never Knows was another of Ringo's. So I gave it a throwaway title because I was a bit self-conscious about the lyrics of Tomorrow Never Knows. So I took one of Ringo's malapropisms, which was like Hard Day's Night, and sort of to take the edge off the heavy philosophical lyrics.
John had this song which was all on the chord of C, which in our minds was okay, like Indian music's all on one chord. It's a perfectly good idea. I was wondering how George Martin was going to take it, because it was a bit of a radical departure, at least we'd had 3 chords, and maybe a change for the middle 8 even, Suddenly this was just John just strumming on C rather earnestly, and, lay down your mind existence.
Revolving.
In those days, there was no tech.
So it goes on a little bit longer, but I wanted you to get a feel for the sound that's being produced here. I think that what they did is they had a revolving recording machine that was going around. I think John wanted to be suspended from the ceiling and himself revolving, and they thought that was a bad idea. So they created a machine to revolve around and create this kind of wah-wah sound that they wanted. So it's really just completely experimental and interesting. And, like they said, it's hard to recreate this sort of thing. I lost my cursor. Come on. Okay. There we go. So to do this kind of thing, to recreate this song, you've got to source the loops. And fortunately, on YouTube, a lot of people are trying to isolate the different pieces of this song. It starts with Ringo on drum, doing that drum loop. And then there's a couple of vocal parts. And then there's, I think it's, is it George laughing? And they tweaked the sound, and then they played it backwards. So there's several different pieces of this bizarre song. But you can go to YouTube to find the audio, and then you can go to GarageBand on your local just to trim the files and place them within your app. Okay, so assuming that you've got all your loops ready to go, you need to build your UI. So here's another native script module, a stack layout. So you're just going to stack images with switches so that you can switch on and off the pieces of the song that you want to play. So you can recreate and renew this song. So to import the loops, you're going to use a plugin. You're going to, not to import them, but to actually play them. So you need to import the NativeScript audio plugin. If you are doing any kind of mobile development and it gets at all complicated, you're going to need to use plugins. Fortunately, NativeScript has a marketplace, and there's a lot of community-sourced plugins. They're really helpful and good. This is a good one. You can just go ahead and require the NativeScript audio plugin, and then you're going to just play your file. And it helps with garbage collection once the file is finished. It cleans up memory a little bit, because audio and video on mobile take up a lot of power. So it's something that you just have to watch out for to clean up after you're done playing. So at this point, I would love for someone to come help me on stage recreate Tomorrow Never Knows on Sgt. Pepper's soundboard. So I'm going to fix my computer, and I would love for someone to come up and join me on stage. I need a volunteer. Anybody want to try? Come on. All right. Excellent. Okay. Yay. I'll catch you next time. You can help me with selfies. Okay, so all you have to do is, this has a drone, the drum, so I think the song started with the drone, and then the drum kicks in, and then the first vocal. This is the second Lennon vocal. There's a couple laughs, but you can certainly go ahead and play and just play with the switches.
Okay. So.
I need to smoke a big blunt. Fantastic. No, you're great. Thank you so much. Give the gentleman a round of applause. All right, bingo. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Yay, we didn't crash the app either, so we were cleaning up our mess as we made it. That's fantastic. Thank you. All right. Cool. So, you can't recreate that song we just did. At DevFest Nantes. Nice. Very good. Okay. Third tab. Third piece of art that we need to create. We've created text mining. We've created some cool things with audio. Let's create a visual that will really speak to the people who have enjoyed the music in the past. So what I decided to do is to take this album cover. This is the US release of Hard Day's Night. I think in the British release there's way more, and it's blue. So their discography really was heavily dependent on where they were releasing. But I like this because it's a simpler layout, and I didn't have to, write so much code. But if we take this album cover, we can replace these guys' heads with our selfies and colorize it black and white. That would be a good idea, right? Let's try that. Okay. All right, so to build this album cover, we're going to build the UI. And again, with the stack layout, some images, and then it's just 4 images, so it's pretty straightforward. You have a tap to take the selfie, and then you pass in the image that you want to replace. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. You need another plugin. This is like a paradise of plugins, right? You need NativeScript Camera plugin, and you just go and import that, and then asynchronously you're going to take a selfie and save it into your app temporarily. So I tried to keep it at a good aspect ratio, 300 by 200, and then all I needed was 4 of them, so I just created a little switch. So that's really easy. And then one more community plugin was needed, so I wanted to convert these images to black and white, and it turns out there's a black and white image conversion plugin. It's called NativeScript Image Black and White, and you just import that, and then target the image that you want to colorize, and then just colorize it. So it's really not that much code to write. So that was really helpful. It's amazing the plugins that people have created. One wonders what that was for. All right, one more interactive demo. Do you want to help me do some selfies? It helps if you have Beatles hair. Oh. Great, okay, so tab 3. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take each picture and just do a selfie. Actually, can you, okay. You're gonna use that photo, and then let's try this one a little bit lower. I wanna just make it bigger. Perfect. One more. And do this one. Can you look to your left?
Oh, sorry.
Either way. There we go. I just want to make this like down. Perfect. Okay, you want to colorize it? Just click Build Album. Beautiful. It's a Hard Day's Night. You did a great job. Oh, let me take a screenshot. Okay, I'll send it to you. All right, great. Awesome. Thank you so much. So that's that piece of the demo. I think it looks fantastic. But again, we have to like, you have to be emo. They were kind of the original emo band, actually, these guys. The K-pop has nothing on them. All right. Cool. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. British invasion. So fun. They were so skinny. Okay, now the promise of the app. So we have John saying cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. At this point, it's time to get weird, right? I mean, not that I'm not already pretty weird, but this is where the promise of Lucy in the sky with AI or ML comes into play. Because what I wanted to do is to use a recurrent neural network to generate fake Beatles lyrics. So it's time to get weird. Let's talk about neural networks. The promise of neural networks is that if this had been existing back in the 60s, I think it would have saved the Beatles quite a lot of work, because they were touring, they were on the road, and they were writing intensively. They were really, composing and composing and composing. And I feel like maybe the vocabulary they're using would have been more innovative if they could have had a recurrent neural network to prompt them, right? So if we could have had some fake texts generated that would have given them some ideas, that would have been maybe helpful. So it's not like we want to create new songs and replace a canon of classic songs. We want to kind of challenge our ideas of what normal is and get creative about what we're building. So let's get weird. There is a really interesting website called AIweirdness.com. And it's by Janelle Shane, and it's really a lot of fun. She does experiments with neural networks, with text mining and data mining, and it's really, really cool. What she did is she invited a bunch of, I think, 7th graders to submit a whole bunch of ice cream recipes. Then she ran the recipes through a neural network to create new names and to create new ideas for ice cream flavors. So here's what was generated. There's bug, mango cats, brown crunch, peanut butter slime, lemon green grass play, pumpkin trash break, bloody coffee, strawberry cream disease. I have a feeling that the 7th graders might have added some vocabulary into the ice cream names. But there's a lot of really funny examples of what neural networks will end up generating if you feed them enough data. Here's another example, my particular favorite. She fed a whole bunch of knitting and crochet patterns into this neural network, and what was generated, people actually created. They followed the pattern and created. And I think it's completely bizarre and creepy what was created. So these kind of bizarre designs that were generated by neural networks. But maybe something could come out of these things that would be really interesting and neat. So I think it's worth a try to see what we can generate. So the RNN that I use was created by Max Wolf, who's working on off of another person's work as well. But he created something that's really easy to get set up and to just make work on your local. If you take a look at this GitHub link, he'll give you ideas of how to use it from your CLI. You can use it interactively, just generating one line at a time. The example he uses is Shakespeare texts and Trump tweets, I think. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's being generated, especially the Shakespeare. It's pretty cool plays. So it comes with a pre-trained model, and you can retrain the last few layers of the neural network on your own texts using transfer learning, or you can start from scratch if you want to. It just takes a while, and it's pretty intensive on your local. So the way this thing works is that TextGen RNN takes an input of up to 40 characters, It converts each character to a vector. We're dealing with TensorFlow, right? So this is all vectors and linear algebra. So it converts each character to a vector and feeds those into a recurrent layer. And then those outputs are then fed into another layer. And then all three layers are then fed into an attention layer to weight the most important temporal features and average them together. So it's looking for characters, and it's looking for words, and it's looking for patterns. And that output is mapped to probabilities that they're the next character in the sequence. You can do it by character, or you can do it by word. It's really interesting and fun, and it ends up generating texts that are sometimes eerily accurate. I fed Emily Dickinson's poetry into this thing, and it was almost picking up the meter that she uses. So Emily Dickinson's poems are always what we call battle meters. So it's like da 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 da. It's a very, very standard meter for all of her poetry. And this RNN actually picked up the meter and was already also trying to make some rhymes. It was really, really bizarre. So I fed, my 213 texts into this neural network using TextGen RNN. So all of that data mining that I did, I just popped it in. And some stuff was generated that's not horrible, right? I want to be your day. Well, I love you, say it, same love. So here we are with love again. She loves you. Say you can be the things, and I said, that's what you better turns. See the say, so like uptime at all time along. It's got a think of your head. It's like she's got a ticket to ride. It's really interesting. And I feel like this would have saved, Paul and John a lot of tension, if we would have just had a neural network that could have generated some ideas, So they could have maybe also boosted up their vocabulary a little bit. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, I was inspired by Ferris Bueller's fantastic Twist and Shout episode, which is my favorite movie sequence of all time, where they're in the Chicago and on the float, doing Shake It Up, Baby. So I created an experience where you shake your mobile phone. Yeah, you're going to use your accelerometer to shake up some new lyrics. Okay, so each shake will pull in some lyrics that I saved. Okay, so here's how the code looks. You start accelerometer. Accelerometer is bundled into your native script modules already, so you don't even have to use a fancy plugin for this. It's just ready to roll. So you start your accelerometer, and it's going to start updating as it's detecting shakes. So that's pretty easy. The demo is like this. All right, here we go. I want to be baby. She day to see I've been. If you well the toward to see, it's true. It's not bad. Well, I want to your way. I want to laze for me. It's like an advertisement for LASIK. I don't let me love you. The babbler was whore. Well, that's terrible. Let's see. Oh, we're getting some French here. That's not bad. I really gonna can. You got a bout of me. I think John would have liked this. Oops, there we go. Cool. All right. Well, so that is Twist and Shout, the ultimate Beatles tribute app. We've got a little bit of ML, a little bit of data mining, a little bit of art, a little music, lyric of the day, and I hope that the copyright police don't come after me, but here we are. So at this point now, we are the walrus, right? We have the power to build these amazing mobile apps in our hands. It's all open source and free. You can totally give it a try yourself. And I just want to leave you with this thought that maybe your work can help create new audiences for vintage artifacts, for vintage stuff. And this QR code will allow you to check out the repo, which has links to all of the tooling that I used. And I just want to say thank you so much. My name's Jen Looper. Follow me at Jen Looper. And I hope to see you online. So thank you.